Boy, it looks like everything's greening up this morning. Glad you could make it. We're happy to have y'all. Each week we're going to try and tell a story or two, maybe something y'all never heard, something a little different. I'm going to tell you a story about me and my buddy Chuck Burnett. Chucky and I, we actually went to the same school together. We were raised in Rossville, but there was a couple of years difference in our age. Actually, one day, my birthday was on the 16th of February and his was on the 17th. Chucky's passed now, but we got to be real good friends. Our lives kind of followed each other. We both went to Rossville. We both were we weren't real troublemakers, but we were both kind of mischievous and we'd get into things. Well, at one point, my parents decided that I was on the way to some bad trouble, so I went off to a place called Berry School. Not because it would, but they just thought I needed a change of location to keep me out of trouble. That didn't work all that well, but anyway, I went down to Berry. A couple of years later, Chucky went to Berry. Now, by that time, I'd already left and gone into the Air Force. But we met later on in life. Chucky was a police officer with the city of Rossville, where we both grew up. And I was a state trooper stationed at Lafayette, which worked that territory. We came into contact, worked with each other, got to know each other. Chuck became a state trooper later on too, and we were both stationed at Lafayette. We got to know each other real well and got to be real good friends. Well, anyway, back to this story. We're going to the desert out in Nevada. Chuck's wife, Marie, was a travel agent for one of the big, or may have been a couple of the big carpet companies around Dalton. A lot of money at that time around Dalton. Carpet industry was booming. The tufted textile business was bringing in millions. Matter of fact, I remember a rating one time said that the city limits of the city of Dalton had more millionaires per capita than any city in the United States. Now, I don't know how true that was, but that was something that I'd read and heard. And I knew a lot of folks who'd taken a chicken house and put up a tufting machine and made a fortune. Y'all might have heard of a fellow named Bob Shaw. I'm gonna mention Shaw. Shaw Industries was big in Dalton. He's still big. If you see, you can still see Shaw Industry trucks driving up and down the interstate today. But anyway, Marie got us some tickets, got us booked into a hotel out in Las Vegas. So we got on a plane and we flew to Las Vegas, the four of us, Chuck, Marie, myself, Laura, checked in. We were having a big time out there, enjoying the casinos, seeing a few shows. Well, Marie got us a car too. We rented a car. We wanted to go driving. We wanted to see a few things around the Las Vegas area. So we decided that we'd drive over towards the Hoover Dam. So we went out to the Hoover Dam, toured it. We went down in the dam, went to the bottom, down to the rooms where the generators were. We walked around the area, took a few pictures, had a big time. Realized we still had some time, so we got out a map. We didn't have all these fancy phones back then and access to Google Maps. You still had to have a paper map and follow the road signs to hopefully get where you wanted to go. We thought, well, the Grand Canyon, we saw something Lake Mead and the Colorado River, and right come out of the south end of the Grand Canyon. And we thought, well, let's drive. Let's see if we can find the south end of the Grand Canyon. So we took off driving and following road signs. We realized we might have made a wrong turn, or at least it didn't seem right. After we forded the second creek on a gravel road, and we suddenly came up to this big sign that said, "You are about to enter a Indian reservation, blah, blah, blah. These are all the do's and don'ts." Well, we decided, well, maybe we're not prepared for this yet. So we decided to go a little, turn around and go back a different way. We got back to the paved road and started following a sign to a place called Meadview, Arizona. Okay. So we drove to Meadview, and sure enough, that's what it was. Now, Meadview was an interesting place. This was a town that was totally laid out with crossroads and intersections, the whole town laid out, stop signs, but it was all just dirt trails, just dirt roads, no houses. Now, as we came in on the main road, there was a couple of houses there. There's a big house on one side, and a house and a little business. We noticed it was a restaurant and bar. There was a car parked out in front of it, but we wanted to drive down, so we saw the sign said lake, and we headed off down towards Lake Mead to see it, and we came up on another sign that said airport, pointed off the road, so we took it and went to the top of this mesa. And mesas out there, that place was as flat as you could think. And it did have a runway. And by runway, I mean a dirt runway that had been, it looked like they took a grader and scraped off a couple of 1,000 feet long and a few hundred feet wide, made a runway. There wasn't any airplanes. There wasn't any hangars, but there was a spectacular view off the top of that mesa out over Lake Mead and where the Grand Canyon came in. It was fantastic. We took a few pictures. We decided we were kind of hungry, so as we started back out the road from Meadview, we pulled into the little restaurant and bar. Well, it looked like they had just finished building this place, and it had a nice long porch, looked like cedar planks and cedar siding on the building. So we walked up onto the porch, and there was a screen door that led inside to the bar and restaurant. And it was like any screen porch you could see in the South, had a big old sign across it. I think it was a colonial bread sign, if I remember correctly. But it had one of these big old springs, and when you opened that thing and let it go, that spring would slam that door shut, sound like a rifle shot going off. Well, anyway, the four of us went into the bar, and there was some tables in there in the bar, and the bartender standing behind it welcomed us in. First thing the ladies did was head to the powder room. Me and Chuck stepped up to the bar and ordered us a couple of beers. Well, the bartender was a talkative fella, but we also noticed as he got those beers out, he had his arm cut off, or his hand cut off just above the wrist. But he'd take that beer bottle, tuck it under that nub, pop the lid off and set it up and hand us a beer. Well, we got to talking, and he started telling us his life story. Seemed like he built that house across the street, and his wife lived in it. But she threw him out. They separated, and now she had another fella living with her over there. But they were, they were the only folks that lived in Meadview at the time. So anyway, he was talking about he just built this place, and he hadn't even named it yet. And he pointed at the back of the bar, and there was one of these big 20-foot oars. It was huge. It was for, at the time, they used ore barges to move ore around from the mining operations around that Lake Mead area in the old days. And he thought he was kind of funny. He said, yeah, we thought we'd name it the Old Ore House. Yeah, we kind of snickered and chuckled, and we went over and sat down at a table and ordered us a bite to eat. The ladies came back. We sat there a minute, and all of a sudden you could hear that screen door. It just creaked when it opened. Bam! And we looked over, and there was a guy walked in with a patch over one eye. He sidled up to the bar and took him a seat, and him and the bartender down at one end of the bar, and they were chatting it up. We sat there and eat a little while, finished our beer, and all of a sudden we heard ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump. That door swung up. Bam! Looked over. Here's a guy with one leg. He's got a peg leg just like a pirate would have. I don't mean a prosthesis like you think about a modern prosthesis. I'm talking about a wooden peg leg. And that's the kerthump we were hearing as he walked across the floor. And him and the one-eyed guy greeted each other, and the one-armed bartender. Well, me and Chuck, we finished up. The ladies went out to the car. Me and Chuck walked up to the bar to pay the tab. Bartender comes over. A nice, friendly guy, wanted to know if everything had been fine, how it was. We told him it was good. We were happy to blah, blah. And Chuck said, I've got you a name for this place. Bartender kind of looked at him, gave him that RCA dog look. Chuck says, yeah. Said, you need to name this place One. Bartender looked at him and said, what do you mean One? Chuck just calmly looked at him in his usual droll manner, said, because they ain't nobody in this town got two of anything. And out the door we went, and that was the last we ever saw of Meadview, Arizona. Well, that's the story for today. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Please look at the bottom. Click the box to the link down there. Take you to our website. And we'll hope to see you and maybe a friend. Be sure if you had a good time and enjoyed the story, come on back and see us, and if you can, bring a friend with you. We'll be sitting here on the porch ready for you, and see you next week. Have a good day.